Detective Sarah Mills stared at the strange object on her desk, a key made entirely of glass. It sparkled under her office lights, catching colors like a prism. The key had arrived that morning in a small black box with no note, no fingerprints, and no clues about its sender. "Another mysterious package, Detective?" Officer Tom Chen asked as he entered her office with 2 cups of coffee. "Yes, and this one is different," Sarah replied, carefully picking up the delicate key. "It's beautifully made, but why send it to me? And who made it?" Just then, her phone rang. The caller ID showed you NKNOWN. "Detective Mills speaking," she answered. "By now, you have received my gift, Detective. The glass key is your first clue. You have 48 hours to solve the puzzle, or the Crystal Palace Museum will lose its most valuable treasure." The line went dead before Sarah could respond. "Tom, call the Crystal Palace Museum right now," she ordered, already putting on her coat. "Tell them to check their security systems. We may have a threat." 20 minutes later, Sarah and Tom walked through the museum's grand entrance. The museum director, Mrs. Eleanor White, was waiting for them, looking worried. "We've checked everything twice," Mrs. White said. "All our displays are secure, but—" She hesitated. "But what?" Sarah pressed. "We just received a new exhibition yesterday, the Emperor's Diamond Collection. It's worth millions." Sarah's mind raced. A glass key, Crystal Palace, diamond collection, everything was connected to glass and crystals. This wasn't random. She examined the diamond exhibition carefully. The security was impressive: laser sensors, pressure plates, and bulletproof glass cases. But something caught her eye, a small mark on one of the display cases, barely visible unless you knew where to look. "Mrs. White, who installed these display cases?" Sarah asked. "The usual company, Morrison Security Systems. They've worked with us for years." Sarah pulled out her phone, called the police station. "I need everything you can find on Morrison Security's recent hires." The next day, Sarah sat at her desk, reviewing employee files, when something jumped out at her. A new technician, James Morrison, the owner's son, had joined the company 3 months ago. Before that, he had studied glassmaking in Venice, Italy. "Tom, look at this," she called her partner over. James Morrison didn't just study glassmaking. He specialized in creating exact replicas of valuable objects in glass. Sarah held up the glass key to the light again. Under her magnifying glass, she noticed tiny letters etched into the stem, 12-0. It was currently 10:30 a.m. "We need to get to the museum now," Sarah said, grabbing her gun and badge. They arrived at the museum at 11:45. Everything looked normal, but Sarah's instincts told her something was wrong. She headed straight for the diamond exhibition. James Morrison was there, supposedly checking the security systems. "Mr. Morrison," Sarah called out. "Or should I say, the artist behind this beautiful glass key." James turned, surprised, but keeping his cool. "Detective Mills, I'm just doing routine maintenance." "No, you're not," Sarah said firmly. "You're planning to switch the real diamonds with glass replicas you've made. Perfect copies that would fool anyone who doesn't look too closely. The glass key was your signature and your challenge to us." James smiled slowly. "Impressive detective work. But you can't prove anything." Sarah walked to one of the display cases and pointed to the tiny mark she'd noticed earlier. "This is where you plan to cut through, isn't it? At exactly 12:0, when the security cameras have their daily 3-second reset?" James's smile faded. How did you? The glass key wasn't just a clue, it was your pride as an artist. You wanted someone to appreciate the skill behind your plan. But pride is often what gets criminals caught. Tom moved forward with handcuffs as Sarah continued. We found your workshop. The glass replicas you made are beautiful. I'll give you that. But they're evidence now. As they led James away, Mrs. White approached Sarah. How can we ever thank you? Sarah handed her the glass key. Keep this in your museum. It's a remarkable piece of art, even if it was meant for crime. Back at her office, Sarah smiled as she completed her report. The case of the glass key had been solved, but she couldn't help admiring the artistry behind it all. Sometimes the most interesting criminals were the ones who treated crime as an art form. Mrs. White had been right. The glass key now sat in its own small display case in the museum, with a plaque that read, "The key that solved its own crime." It served as a reminder that even the most brilliant plans could be undone by the smallest details, and a detective who knew where to look